What's going on? Alright, we're recording. Um, Today I'm going to do a video on support units, utility heroes, the things that you take that don't do much damage. I'll do that in waves and infinite builds, and I might actually, yeah, you know what, we'll make it a bonus video, and I'll add in a colony build on the end and how you should approach colonies and what you should use for colonies. Give me 1 second and I'll write down a notepad note to remember that because I am fairly gone. Colonies, remember to do them. Okay, awesome. Now we've got that right next to me there. So basically half your team is going to be utility, and that is heroes that you take despite the fact that they do not do damage, because they either buff other heroes, or they buff your town archers, or they heal, or they bring some aspect, some mechanic, some utility that is basically essential to doing the most damage and optimizing your build. That could be for waves, that could be for infinite. They're a little bit different for each. Let's start with Dark Hunter. Dark Hunter's a very, very good utility hero. He does no damage. He does fuck all damage. Even with the multi-shot +2 hits, it doesn't do anything. What you bring him for is the Town Archer attack speed bonus, and with quad cooldown, you can get that up pretty much 70 to 80% of the time, depending on your rolls. Now, your Town Archers, when you get further and further into the game, they become more and more important because your heroes have a hard level cap of, realistically, your heroes have a hard level cap of 9999. The heroes have a hard level cap of prestige 9999. But most of the people watching these tutorial videos don't really have a chance of realistically reaching the point in the game where that becomes important. I'm not even there yet. The day I can make 7 trillion gold in a week, or even in 2 weeks, 7 trillion gold is a lot. And if I can do that, then that becomes important. But I'm not there, and I'm at wave 372,000. So it's not really significant for me yet either. So let's just say 9999 is the cap for your heroes. Now, for your utility heroes, you don't want them level capped. You don't want anything like that. Dark Hunter's great. It buffs your attack speed, or there's a couple other things that affect Town Archer, but Dark Hunter's probably your best one because it also passively adds a little bit of attack speed, not a lot, not a significant amount, but a little bit to your Ranger, which should be in the middle between Dark Elf and Dark Hunter. Now that buffs your Town Archers, which scale effectively infinitely. I mean, you're never going to get your Town Archer to 2.147 billion. You're just never going to do it. No one's going to do it, not even Sweet Bee, as try-hard and impressive as his playing hours are. He's just not. The amount of gold cost to get even to 500,000 is just ridiculous. So you're just not going to get to the cap for Town Archers. With that said, though, they scale much higher than any other unit. You've got, I mean, mine at 82,001 have 48,138.8 damage per shot. There's 20 of them. They shoot every 1.5 seconds on 1 time speed, so every 0.75 seconds on 2 times speed, and that's 48,138.8 times 20 every 1.5 seconds or 0.75 seconds, depending on what speed you run. So that's a very good utility hero to bring. When I get to Infinite, I'll tell you why you swap him out. Next is Dark Elf. Should be a bit of a no-brainer. I covered it in the Archers video. You get HP. It's life on hit. It's mana on hit. It also buffs your ranger. It's just a no-brainer. Take it. Don't ever not have Dark Elf. It helps you in Colonies, it helps you in waves, it helps you in skip waves, it helps you in Infinite. If you gear it properly, which is +1 arrow and +1 arrow, you definitely need those two. Ideally, you'd have plus damage or damage percent on the other slots. I obviously don't, but it's just bonus damage. It's free damage. There's no mana cost to running him. There's no wasted slot. You're just getting a heal with a small amount of damage, but it's free damage nonetheless. I would consider Dark Eye Sorcerer a bit of a utility hero because you only take him to freeze. He freezes mobs. You don't really need to run him or actually cast his ability in waves or skip waves, although a lot of people, I'd recommend for most people that you freeze the Tauren just because he can hurt a little bit. For Infinite though, you basically want to run it on cooldown, which is why I'm running quad cooldown on him. I use the Sorcerer for the bigger area. I've covered that in Wizard, so I'm not going to go too far into it. Now, I get asked a lot, why don't you use White Mage instead of White Sorcerer, Pure Sorcerer, White Wizard, or Pure Wizard? The game currently is a little bit broken, and the developer's aware of this, and everyone is aware of this. Everyone playing the meta is aware of this. Pure Wizard's great, reduces the cooldown of heroes by 6 seconds, and 1 second off the cooldown of heroes on each side. The thing is, White Mage reduces the cooldown of heroes by 5 seconds, including White Mage, which means instead of having a 12.1 second cooldown, he's got a 8.1 second cooldown, and that's more cooldown reduction spamming White Mage, which cooled down itself, so it's up faster to give you another cooldown than anything else you can do. That's pretty much core. Run quad cooldown on that, but definitely use White Mage instead of any other promotions. At least until he fixes it, and then I'd say Pure is probably the better option. Realistically, you don't really want minus MP cost. It gets to a point where it's irrelevant because 561,000 mana. You're not really going to use that unless you spam everything. Even in Infinite, I very rarely drop below 80% mana. Giant Ogre is another utility hero. This one's for Infinite only. I would never use this in waves, just because it would make waves take longer. You want quad cooldown on it. Or actually, you want triple cooldown and I've touched on this before. You want cooldown and the static cooldown effect of X seconds. He knocks everything back. You want to use him as much as possible. With the right amount of cooldown, you can get him down to about 8 seconds. Tie in the White Mage, which drops 5 seconds off, and you've got a 3-second cooldown on Giant Ogre every second use, which is really good. It'll extend your Infinite build by billions of damage, literally billions of damage. You'll go so much further if you're knocking everything off the screen as fast as you can. Dark Necromancer is another no-brainer. It's a core hero. There's nothing that you should ever swap out for it. It drops the monster defense by an extreme amount, 154%, which means effectively they take 154% more damage. You don't want Dark Nightmare because you don't need to reduce monsters' attack, they die. Uh, Military Band Female, I wouldn't use it. It's not really worth it. The percent chance scales with your wave, or reverse scale, anti-scales maybe is the word, with your wave. The higher your wave, the lower the chance. It's just not worth it. If you are going to use it for low waves though, you want cooldown, and you want mana point reduction, so you get it down from that 80% mark. Military Band Male can be good. I've used it in Infinite quite a few times. It gives you a bit of extra gold, which is always helpful. Infinite doesn't pay out as well as it should, but it heals your hero, and you can pretty much heal, especially when you've got White Mage running, you can heal way more than every 109.8 seconds. Now, it's a contested slot. It's not core, it's not essential, it's a very particular choice that you're going to make for Infinite if you want Zero to last long. It does work. I've done 200 billion runs with it. I've done 200 billion runs without it. It's an interesting build. Bishop's probably the most expendable, sorry, utility hero. Very good buffs. Hero attack speed, plus 50% for 5 seconds. No one can complain about that, except that auto attacks pretty much suck across the board. And it increases town archer damage by 100% for 5 seconds, which is very good. But if you're going to swap any utility hero out, you're going to swap Bishop first. You're not going to swap anything else. Smith is basically the military band, but for your castle, and that is what you'd swap. You'd either run Smith or you'd run military band male. You wouldn't run both. That would be a waste of slots. You want Smith, you don't want Stoss, because high level infinite or competitive infinite assumes that your mana is at a high enough level that you don't need to worry about Stoss's shitty 10% mana, or whatever it is, 20% mana. 15. We'll split it in half. Smith is he scales with your castle health, so 60% is always 60%. Whether you've got 1 million castle health, 10 million castle health, 100 million castle health, 60% is 60%. Obviously, the more castle health you have, the more relative healing it does. You're going to want quad cooldown on that, by the way. No static cooldown legendary affix because he's over 20 seconds, obviously. Very, very good hero to use, but you have to be quick when you are using it. Otherwise, you'll drop in a heartbeat. Now, Mecha Ram is also a utility hero, believe it or not. This is a knockback hero. In Infinite, basically what you're going to do is you're going to freeze, you're going to knock back, and then you're going to use Mecha Ram with Bombard. And the Bombard will, even with 20% knockback, it'll knock everything back. I'm running a bit more than that, just so the auto attack also knocks back. His damage is okay. You can run some damage on him. I wouldn't personally, because I'm only using him for Infinite. So I'm running double cooldown. But he really is there just for that extra knockback and the auto attack knockback. Architect is not worth using at all. I mean, he needs a massive buff. The wall would need to be double that. They'd all need to be double. 140% of your health, 195% of your health, 140% of your health before it would even be worth using. Assassin is critical. I use Deep at the moment just because I'm not really focusing on infinite. I'm just sort of auto-waving, and I like getting my bosses down quickly. But for infinite, you definitely use dark because it assumes that, I'll swap to my infinite build. You're running Curse Blade, Curse Knife, whatever it's called, which gives your archers critical chance 60%. You're running Sharp Arrow, which gives them 20%. And your skill gives you 20%. So that's 100% crit chance for your town archers. You just run dark, so your town archers always crit. As for his items, quad cooldown's good. Quad cooldown with legendary slow affix or a stun affix is very, very good. Knockback also works because you want to use his slash as often as you possibly can, and it hits every mob on the screen. As far as utility heroes, that's really all. I suppose Orc Copter, which I touched on last night, is a utility hero. It slows, it blocks, it doesn't do much damage. You really take it just to stunt the flying cancers in infinite. That's your typical infinite build. No, I don't think there's anything else to talk about in terms of utility heroes. Let's ooh, my build's been vanished. So let's make a colony build here right now. Just real quickly. We'll go castles, and we're going to use minigun. We're going to use lightning, and we're going to use shield. Now, as for the towers, those three are fine. Those three are kind of perfect, actually. We're going to use thunder in the front. We're going to use cannon. There's no point taking gold, so we're going to use defensive barracks, and we're going to use, let's say, burning. Not that it super matters for towers. Excuse me. Bottom tower, we'll just take poison. Not that it does anything. As for the heroes, what hits? Not much. So we'll take White Mage. We'll take Necro. We'll take Smith, because you'll definitely want Smith. And this is where it veers off from everything else. Take the Witches. Yep, the Witches are very, very good because they saturate the battlefield in skeletons. Now, apart from that, I reckon Windy's not too bad. Fire Whiz is alright. And Mecha Ram, where's Mecha Ram? There we go. Now you change the items on Mecha Ram if you've got the ability to do so, and run as much fire % as you can. As for the leader, I'd still run 0, just personally. And that's your typical colony build. I can't do any colonies, partly because it glitches out like this, and partly because I've done them all. But basically, the strategy behind colonies is pump your witches out as much as you can. Every time they come off cooldown, skeleton, 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 just keep doing it. You don't need items for them to win any of them. It helps a lot though if you have respective elemental damage and +1 summon. Use your Mecha Ram as often as you can on the enemy castle. The Mecha Ram can hit the castle. Use Windy close to the enemy castle so it sort of clips everything. And use your Ranger, Necro and then Ranger on the enemy castle to zerg down the castle. Your Ranger's the one that's going to be taking down castle health. It's not anything else. The witches are just to take down the troops. Everything else is just sort of distraction, minor damage. Your Ranger is the MVP of everything. It's the MVP of boss skips. It's the MVP of Cancer Packs in Infinite. It's the MVP of Colonies. It's the MVP of Dragons. And I'm hoping at some point, as I said last night, in April, preferably, but maybe in the future, there's a hero that comes up that rivals the Ranger because it's kind of a stale meta at this point. Anyway, that's utility heroes and doing colonies. Episode, I don't actually know. Let's say 10, 9, 10, 11, one of those. Hopefully you've learned something. You should go out, do some more colonies. Leave a comment if you can, if you get further in your colonies than you did before, and let me know how you progressed and how you found it. Thanks for watching. Peace.